You've got to quit importing millions of people into a real estate market, whether rental or purchase,
Mm-hmm.
because that affects the supply and demand. It also affects personal finances because those people are going to get some job to work.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to further dilute the finances of the community, right? The chances for you to be upwardly mobile are more difficult. So when you say we're going to stop the border issue, and when I say the border issue, I'm the 2,000 people, wherever they're coming from.
Yeah.
You know, they could be coming from Burma, they could be coming from India, they can be coming from Venezuela. It doesn't matter. They're just humans,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all looking for a way to get ahead.
Mm-hmm.
You got to manage that differently as a government. You can't just hit and hope.
This is the Kuiper Files, and I'm John Westerkamp. Today we're going to talk about affordability, and more specifically about housing affordability. I'm pleased to have Steve Hoagland on the show. Steve graduated from Southport High School and received a college degree from the University of Indianapolis, where he majored in political science. After college, Steve Hoagland spent the first part of his career in sales and management at IBM. Then in 2007, he transitioned to the Hoagland Group, where he was a realtor and sold houses and was in the real estate market in central Indiana and a lot of other places. Steve is the owner and president of the Hoagland Group. I'm really happy to welcome him on the show. Steve, welcome to the Kuiper Files.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you having me.
It's a delight to have you on the show. So you've been in the real estate for the past 20 years or so. I'm real curious, what is the biggest difference that there's been between when you started and the real estate market now?
The interesting part about the topic of affordability when it comes to real estate is there's so many variables that play into it. And the one that really, I mean, most people immediately go to what's the interest rate today, and what, you know, if I take a loan out, what's my payment going to be?
Mm-hmm.
That at right now, you know, if you were talking to me, let's just say in 2018, somewhere in that range, maybe 19 or 20,
Mm-hmm.
I might have said, well, the interest rate's right around 3, maybe a little lower. It just depends. Check with your lender, and, you know, let's get you in a house, because if you're at that low of an interest rate, you win.
Mm-hmm.
So buy all the house you can, because that interest rate doesn't show up very often. So you say, well, interest rates are interesting. Consumer confidence is very, very much a part of the whole discussion. If people are worried about their jobs, or they're hearing about people getting laid off, that kind of stuff, they get real antsy about, do I want to invest in something that might be my biggest investment of my life?
Yeah.
But the real core of what affects prices is supply and demand. And in my mind, if there's a great supply and not a lot of demand, prices come down. I mean, it's just really easy economics. Supply high, price comes down.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we don't have that situation going on. We haven't had that situation going on for quite a while. I take it back to a start. I got into the real estate business in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2007, everything I was seeing was normal to me, because I'd never been in real estate before. It wasn't normal.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even realize it.
And just for context, if there was a geographic area that you said, this is my region more or less, what is that exactly? Because obviously real estate's different around the country, but where?
100%. Real estate is all about where.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it? If you have a house on the beach, it's going to have a different price than a house in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the south side of Indianapolis, right in the center of Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
So we traditionally had not been impacted by fluctuating prices historically, period, at all. I mean, prices just kind of withered along, maybe at 2 or 3% increase per year. and that was as far back as you can go, back to when it was tents and wigwams. In 2007, we had an extreme situation going on, and people were getting kicked out of their houses because they couldn't afford to pay for their houses because of the loans that they took out and the home equity loans that they took out on top of that. They couldn't pay for it because they were losing jobs, and the economic market just went crazy. And on the south side of Indianapolis, as I'm looking at available supply, I would say it wasn't uncommon to have 30% of the houses on the market as a foreclosure or a short sale or some sort of distress sale, like bank owned or VA owned or something like that.
Okay.
It wasn't. There were neighborhoods where it was more than 30%. But in every neighborhood in the area, regardless of the price of the house, regardless of the previous value of the house, there were foreclosures everywhere.
Yeah.
Created a great amount of supply, but there was no demand because people didn't have money.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going through a difficult time with the lending side because, and I'll give you a for instance, and these are tragic discussions, and I don't even like to think about them, and I worry about them coming back around when I listen to the news.
Yeah.
But I'll give you an example of a house down in Franklin, Indiana, just south of here, 15, 20 minutes. The folks that owned that house took out a loan to buy the house. And then they said, you know what? We can't make our payments. Let's take a home equity loan out.
Mm-hmm.
And by the rules of the time, there were no rules.
Okay.
And so let's just use big round numbers because it's easier to use big round numbers. Let's just say it was a $150,000 house when they bought it.
Okay.
And a couple of years later, they took out a home equity loan, and they took out a home equity loan for $70,000 or $80,000.
And what was the reason why they're taking out a home equity loan? Is this to pay?
Because they lost jobs, they
Okay.
couldn't make their payments,
Got
so they're in the position where I can't pay for the house, so I'm going to get this lifeline that's called a home equity loan, and that'll at least give me cash, and that way I can pay for the house.
Which is crossing the threshold of going into a death spiral financially.
It was a death spiral. And let me give you, for instance, when we sat down to chat with them and they said, Steve, we'd like to sell the house.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think we can get for it?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, so what do you owe on it? And the answer was $240,000.
Oh my goodness. And the house is worth
And in my mind, I'm thinking, how in the world did you get a $240,000 loan on this specific house?
Mm-hmm.
Because on its best day, I'm going to be able to sell it for maybe 160 or 170. And this has been 15 years ago or more.
Sure.
So the numbers are
So they're upside down.
not as fresh in my mind as I can remember. But they're not just upside down. They've been treated poorly by the lending community because the lending community should never have made that home equity loan because they had no equity.
Mm-hmm.
Where they were at was they're behind on payments already. They have no equity. But at the time, somebody said, you know what? It's okay. Give them a home equity loan. Money is easy. And that was the discussion that was started in Washington. Let's make money easy to get to so that people can buy houses.
Right.
So they did that. And they said, you know what? You need $70,000, $80,000, $100,000. We'll just take it out on the home equity side, and when you go to sell your house, you can pay it back.
Mm-hmm.
The problem was, and this is a sad part of this discussion, they used the money to go to Florida, have a vacation. So there they are, they're sitting there, and they're in an absolute hideous position.
Mm-hmm.
I can't sell the house, and I can't live in it.
Right.
Well, that was going on all over central Indiana. And all over the United States.
Do you have any sense of, like, do you have numbers on that? Or do you know, are we talking about 100, 1,000, 10,000? What's the magnitude we're talking?
The actual number of houses?
Yeah, people or folks that are in that position in 2007, 2008.
Think about your neighborhoods. There's one that I always think of. It's a neighborhood on the east side of Greenwood. If there was 400 houses in the neighborhood, and there was 40 houses on the market, 30 of them were foreclosed.
Wow.
Okay, or in short sale or in some sort of economic distress.
So near 10% of
Yeah.
houses, but near 75% of houses that are being sold.
Yes. So let's say you're John Westerkamp
Okay.
and you live in a house down the street and you've been making your payments,
Yeah.
right? But now somebody says, John, we're going to give you a job in Staten Island.
Okay.
Well, you need to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And you bought your home 2 years ago for $150,000 and you've been making your payments all along and everybody's happy. And now you're going to sell and you come to Steve at the Hoagland Group and you say, how much can I get for my house? And I go, right now, maybe 120, 125. And you go, whoa, 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 whoa. I just bought it 2 years ago for 150. And I've been making my payments. I'm not in a bad. My house is in great condition. There's no issues. Why? And I would look at you and say, because there are 8 other homes that are just about like your house, right down the street. I can throw a rock and hit 2. And those houses are going to sell for about 80 or 90.
Oh, goodness.
And some investor is going to buy it,
Mm-hmm.
and he's going to fix it up, and he's going to sell it for 120, and somebody's going to be happy to get a house for $120,000.
Okay.
And that went on for years. Now, while all that's going on, this comes back around to the supply and demand part. Because there was so much supply, new build homes that are not yet constructed, but just a bare lot. Those builders couldn't sell a house because there was so plentiful of supply.
Mm-hmm.
Right down the street. How do you sell a house at the value of a new build if there are 30 of them in a neighborhood that are for sale at half that cost? So from the time frame of 2007 till about 2012, there were virtually no houses being built in the Greenwood area, southern Indianapolis.
Is that fair to say that the donut counties?
None.
Is that fair to say that there weren't houses being constructed in, let's say, the donut counties of Indianapolis as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So it wasn't just Greenwood specific. Generally speaking, Indiana's not building homes. Probably most places aren't.
Exactly. So the only homes that are being built are generally by custom builders, by somebody who has money in their pocket to pay cash for the house or with a significant down payment. I was always amazed when somebody would come to the Greenwood area from Detroit or New York or Los Angeles, and they were stunned by how much house they could buy. And they had money because they'd lived in a higher expensive place, and so they had money, and they'd come here and go, I can't believe I can get 7,000 square feet of house for this price. And they were excited. But that was a really small portion of the marketplace.
Yeah.
So if you say in a normal year, let's just say in a normal year they build, and I don't have this number, but let's just say in a normal year they'd build 2,000 houses
Okay.
in the Greenwood area. And by Greenwood, I'm a pretty good circle. For 5 years, that doesn't go on.
Mm.
So for 5 years, 2,000 houses a year aren't being built.
Mm.
So that takes 10,000 houses out of the marketplace. Right?
Yeah.
That will affect the supply side coming up.
Okay.
I'm going to get to that. Because at that same time, while all this stuff is going around, there are some very clever people in clever places that are saying, you know what? Real estate, the stock market for real estate right now is at an all-time low. And we're going to buy up real estate as fast as we can, and we're going to rent it. And we're going to let somebody else pay rent for the next 30 years, and then we'll have assets that we can sell at a much higher price 30 years from now.
Mm.
And we're going to make money between now and then. And those companies came with all kinds of different names. The one that I saw a lot was a place called America's Home for Rent. And you would get a purchase agreement from them. And they were very clever about how they did it. They would offer cash at a time when people didn't have cash. They would offer cash offers. They would get close to what the list price was, but not at list price, depending on the house. And they'd say, you know what, we'll take care of whatever the inspection is. Just accept our offer and we'll be on our way. And it was not unusual for us to put a house on the market and within 24 hours have at least one, maybe 3 or 4 different American home for rent kind of companies coming to us and saying, here's our offer, we'll buy that house today. We can close in 15 days. What do you say? It's hard to look at somebody who has a house on the market and they see their neighbors on the market for 6 months, 9 months, not selling. It's hard not to look at them and say, seems like a pretty good deal. You know, you're getting pretty close to what your list price is. You're out. You can move on with your life, get out from the financial struggles. The phone will quit ringing. People will quit calling and asking for money. You'll be done. You're out. The Hoagland Group saw so many of those houses get accepted offers from those kinds of companies. I should have kept track of how many, but it was tons. And I'm just one of several hundreds, if not thousands, of real estate agents in the area that were getting those same kind of offers. So those companies were coming along and they were buying up neighborhoods. There's one specific neighborhood in over off of US 31 near Whiteland. Used to be the churn neighborhood. Young families would move in, and after a few years, they'd finally get a little upward mobility, and they'd sell their house and move to another place. So there was a lot of churn, and maybe there was 10 or 20% churn every year, year on year, of people moving in, people moving out. After those real estate investment companies came along, they bought up those neighborhoods, and now there's no churn in those neighborhoods at all.
Because they're leased.
So, how's that affect the marketplace?
Well, and there's no churn because they're being rented? Is that?
They're being rented. Yes, they're being rented, never to be sold again, or at least not in the foreseeable future. Well, now the part of that is rentals usually are not kept as nicely. They're not. The yards aren't kept as well. You know, everything about them it shows it's not somebody that's invested in the neighborhood. So that makes the whole value of the neighborhood go down. So as that value is coming down, people are jumping out like, I got to get out before I'm the last one in the neighborhood. Well, when you look at the marketplace and you see the supply of houses that a young person, and I'm going to use young, I'm going to say 30 or younger.
It's all relative, isn't it?
It's all relative. You know, I bought a house in 1981 during the biggest issue with inflation and interest rates that we've had in my lifetime. I bought a house at 12% interest. That was not fun.
No, it doesn't sound fun.
12% is twice what the interest rate is right now. But when you want to get out of a house or get out of an apartment, you find clever ways to make things work. So that supply side, we lost thousands and thousands of homes that were the affordable homes that people would normally move in and move out of. They're gone. And when you look at that, it didn't really become apparent until later in the 2000 teens, 2015, 18, 2020. All of a sudden it was like, wow, house prices, we didn't sell houses for $150,000. You used to be able to buy a nice little house, 2,000 square foot in a neighborhood with a 2-car garage for $150,000. All of a sudden you're looking at that and it's $250,000. And you're like, wow, this is great. I'm in real estate, you know, my sellers are thrilled because the house they bought for $150,000, we're selling for $250,000. Now they've got all this cash and they can move on to the next thing. And then you add to that, the interest rates at that time are 3% or less. So these people are buying up houses as fast as they can because money's cheap.
And there's you said there's no
Most people,
houses. There's no houses, and there's two categories of no houses. One is the houses that haven't been built that should have existed. And second are the houses that have been captured by professional investors that have no investment, no skin in the game for the community that they have home ownership.
they're not worried about affordability for young couples.
And meanwhile, you're not even worried, from my perspective, if the neighborhood goes to become completely rented, other neighborhoods are affected by that as well. Because I don't even want to be in a neighborhood that's next to a neighborhood like that, right?
Exactly.
So it's like a blight or it's like a cancer, really, where you don't have people with skin in the game in the community. And so how are young families faring, in your opinion, these days in terms of finding an affordable house? I mean, you had said a second ago you were amazed that people from other places around the country would come and say, hey, it's really affordable to live in central Indiana. Mm-hmm. How's it going now?
It's a struggle right now. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Interest rates are a big part of it. Where I was going with my previous conversation was we had churn. People were buying and selling houses. But when we were trying to get the marketplace going again, mm-hmm. builders started building. But remember, we're already 10,000 houses behind in our neighborhood.
Right.
And we're losing our inventory by 10 or 20 a day that are being bought up by these rental companies. So the inventory for people to move into is sliding away. The builders that are building that at that point in time said, you know what? I'm not building cheap houses. It's not an economic model that works for me. I'm going to start building houses, but they're 300,000 and above, or 400,000 and above, to the point where now to get a 2,000 square foot home in a new build neighborhood might cost you easily $400,000.
That's a lot of money.
15 years ago, it was $150,000.
Wow.
I mean that affordability scale just blew past what anybody in a salary position. You're going to have to get some big increases annually to keep up with that curve. Mm-hmm. So you got the supply issue, and then you add to that, we have millions of people coming to the country. And that's legally and illegally, but they're coming to the country, and they've got to have somewhere to live. So they either live with friends that they know, or they go rent someplace. Mm-hmm. One of those houses that were American Home for Rent, or apartments, or wherever that is. So what happened to the supply and demand curve with rentals? All of a sudden, you force into it a huge number of people that are now in the rental market. That makes the rental prices go up. And then so you've got people that are hoping to get out of a rental to buy into a new house, and they've got a perfect storm going against them. And they'll never get out of the rental because rental prices keep going up. I can't tell you how many people said, I've got to get out of this apartment because it's way too expensive. Right. And I'm like, but you can't afford a house. Mm-hmm. I mean, the houses not in the areas that you want.
Yeah. So
it was just a bad situation. But so supply and demand is the big thing. Consumer confidence, big thing. Interest rates are dropped to 6, which if you'd asked me in 1981 if that's good, I'd have said 6 is lovely. But right now you've got a huge number of people that are sitting in a home with a 3% or below. And what's their incentive to sell?
Nothing.
None. Not none. People are always going to get divorced. People are always going to die. People are going to get new jobs and have to move on. Those people, there's a natural amount of churn that goes on with those kinds of things. But to the normal person who says, houses are really expensive. I've got a really nice rate right now. It's very affordable. I'm comfortable. I'm going to sit out for a while. Because if I go to buy something else, I got to double my interest rate.
Right.
From 3 to 6. So again, what does that do to the supply-demand curve? When you take a large portion of the people that bought a house over the last 10 years, and they're saying, no, not right now.
This is the cheapest housing option.
The supply is low again.
This is the cheapest housing option that those folks will ever have in their life, full stop.
Likely. Yeah, likely. So it comes down to personal finances,
Hmm.
but it's all impacted by other things that are going on in the marketplace.
So I want to go back because you had said everybody, the government policies were militating towards allowing people to have houses back in 2007 that was leading to all these problems.
Hmm.
Are those incentives and policies that were there in 2007, have they been addressed? Are they not addressed? Have they been over addressed? Where does that sit right now?
There was a lot of noise about that in that 2008 to 2010 or 11 range,
Hmm.
because people said we can't have this. This isn't good for us or anybody. We've got to put some reins in on this because we we decided that for whatever well-intentioned purpose. I mean, it's a noble thing to say we want to help people get into a house.
Yep.
And I'm gonna use my terms. And let's do stupid things financially to enable that.
Okay.
Let's just take the reins off so people can do that. And only goodness and mercy will fall out of the sky.
Hmm.
Um, After the events of 2008, 9, 10, as a real estate agent, we learned our lesson really fast that good intentions work with some people, but it destroyed the market.
The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Good intentions.
That's what
And
economics
so
professor said to me.
they were very clear. Boy, we got to clean some of this up. We got to take some of that back. The memory of that for any real estate agent that lived through it
Hmm.
is still firm. You remember what that felt like. You remember what it did to the marketplace. You remember the anguish you saw on your client's face. You remember what their kids looked like. The family I was talking about in Franklin, they were going into what's called a short sale. And with a short sale, you had to prove to the bank that you didn't have any money and where your money was going, all that kind of stuff. So, as a real estate agent, we were partially a real estate agent, partially a financial advisor, partially a grief expert, and partly just an administrator handling paper because the banks required huge amounts of paperwork.
Hmm.
But when you see their charge bill and you see that those three young boys that are sitting over there on the couch listening to the conversation, when you see that all they've had to eat every day, they go to Burger King.
Hmm.
Every day they went to Burger King for dinner.
Hmm.
And you sit there and you look at it and you think, this is going to be generational. These kids are going to grow up. This is going to impact them for years and years and years. And it was because bad decisions were made for the wrong reasons. And it was sad. And I got to the point where I hated going on calls to with people because there was grief in the room. Grief. I mean, I can't tell you how many of our clients looked at us and said, please make my phone quit ringing. Please make this stop.
Hmm.
Please pull some magic out of a hat. There really wasn't a whole lot of magic. But we did our best to get people where they needed to be. I don't want to see that happen again. Any agent that lived through that doesn't want to see that happen again. So when we start to listen to the news and people start saying, "Oh, let's find a way to help," let's hand some money out and make it easy for people again, we get to that reflex of, I remember what happened with that, and that wasn't good. So we get real nervous.
Who's responsible? Because, I mean, in the news, it's easy to have quick knee-jerk reactions to crises like this. And depending on what your political stripe is, the news is, well, it's the banking regulators. They dropped the ball. They didn't do their job. We need more regulations on lending. Other people will say it's the bankers. They shouldn't have lent the money. Other people will say, well, people need to take personal responsibility. They have moral agency. They shouldn't have borrowed all this money. They should have been responsible. Who's culpable? Who's at fault?
keep going. It's all of those.
It's everybody. Everybody's at fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when people are standing saying, "Here's free money, take it, go do something with it,"
Yeah.
sure, let's go. You know, you're going to help me with down payment assistance. Here's $5,000. Go buy a house. Here's your down payment assistance. Okay. What have I got to lose?
Right.
Okay, but John, and if you lived through that as I did, you will also remember that I would go back on it. I would look at the finances of a house, and I would see how many payments they'd missed, and I would literally see they bought this house in October of, let's just say October of 2007.
Okay.
Let me use an example.
Yeah.
And they never ever made a payment.
Not one.
And now they're saying, "Oh, well, go ahead," and they would use a clever term. They'd say, "Just give it back to the bank." Just give it back to the bank. Well, you do realize if that occurs, that your credit rating is going to take a major hit, and that's going to affect you for the next 7 years or longer. I don't care. Just give it back to the bank. I'm tired of it. I'm done. And now they're living in the house. And now, here's the fun part, John. This is the part that a lot of people didn't see. There were so many houses getting into this situation at the time that person that bought it, let's say in October of 2007, they might get their foreclosure notice in May of 2008. And because the banks didn't want to flood the market with inventory, cause even more supply and less demand,
right,
would even crush the market even worse. They were like, just let them live in the house, and we'll deal with them at a future date. So it was not unusual for me to see somebody living in a house for 2 years, 3 years.
Wow.
In a foreclosed situation, never making a payment, but still going to Disney World every year on vacation.
Did these people have any equity or any skin in the game in the house? No. They didn't put $1 of equity down.
No, they didn't. They were. It was a perfect storm of stupid. Now, all of that plays into today in the affordability issue, because all of those supply and demand issues that were back then still have legs today, because those houses that were bought up by those rental companies still are in the rental company hands.
Yeah.
You know, I hear Trump saying he wants to do something about it, and I'm thinking you're 10 years too late. Or no, not too late. You could have started on this 10 years ago. And there's a part of me that's like, those people had financial ability and a motivation. And you know what? If I was a stockholder in their company, I'd probably be like, yeah, good idea. I mean, we're going to make money hand over fist. And we can always sell those houses in 10 years, or, we sell them one at a time, and, we're going to get our money out of this forever.
Whenever
there's part of me as a normal human that's like, well, I wish I'd have thought of that. I wish I'd have started just buying up houses and owning whole neighborhoods and renting them out, and be able to adjust my rental prices however I want. But as a whole, it's still wrong. And we all knew there was something wrong there, but we were acting on behalf of our clients. And if it was the right thing for our clients, it was the right thing for us. And that's why thousands of real estate agents and all over the country were saying, sure, sell it to this rental company, move on.
I have two questions about these rental companies. When I see a YouTube video or something, inevitably there's always those ads that jump up, and I get all the time, if you own a home in Indiana that was built before blah, 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 I want to buy your home in the next 10 days for cash. Is that advertisement a rental company along the lines of what you're talking about?
It probably is. There's a ton of people out there who are trying to attract desperate sellers, people that have issues and they want to buy the house. And it can be your mom and dad flipper who wants to flip a house and make a few dollars, or it can be a company that buys the houses and fixes and sell them. It can be companies that are trying to do it as uh, a strategy nationwide. And to that point, John, these companies would send us proof of funds along with their offers. They'd send the offer, and it'd be a good offer. It'd be have all the right terms and conditions attached to it,
Okay.
and then they would attach here's how much money we have. We're good for it, and
Yeah.
it would come with, you'd see the bank statement. We have 400 million in the bank.
Okay.
So you didn't, as an agent, you didn't have to worry that this deal was going to fail somehow. They had money.
Okay.
It was going to happen, and it's going to happen in 2 weeks. Start packing, get out, and you win. So
Mhm.
move on. So when you see those things today, it can be anywhere from a guy flipping things to a group of people to a big business doing it. I get them for my personal house. I'll get mailings.
Yeah.
I will get text messages. Actually, it's interesting because my son has a home about 30 minutes from here.
Mhm.
I get text messages because his first name and my first name are the same, saying, "Would you like to sell your house on Norma Jean? We'll pay cash. We'll be done in 2 weeks." I still get those every whip snitch. Um, Most of those people are trying to buy homes off the market. Some of that I think is they're wanting to buy a house. And I'll give you an example. If my son bought his house as he did about 2012, maybe something
Yeah.
like that, and
Yeah.
let's just say he paid $116,000 for it.
He won.
It's a 1,600 square foot ranch with a 2-car garage in a lovely neighborhood, and the neighborhood has a pool. If he's not up to date on, or he's not savvy with real estate, and somebody comes along and says, "I know you bought your house for 114, I'll give you 180 today." To somebody that's like, "You know what, I was just wanting to go hike Colorado." Okay. That guy that offered that, he wins.
Mm-hmm.
He probably could have sold for 250 today, maybe more, I don't know, maybe less.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just say he did that. The guy that made that offer, he's looking for that kind of seller, somebody that, and there are a lot, and I hate to say this because I'm getting towards this age, but there are a lot of people my age and older who aren't savvy, aren't particularly crisp thinking,
Mm-hmm.
who are easily swayed, and Alzheimer's and dementia and those kinds of things don't just happen overnight.
Or
I can
maybe they
see,
haven't been in the market for 40 years.
or they haven't been in the market since 1984,
Right.
and they look at it and they go, "Well, I bought it in 1984 for 220, so I'm thinking maybe 300." And somebody comes along and says, "I'll give you 330 for it." You're like, "Okay, great." That's my suspicion that large part of that group of people that are making those kinds of offers, they're trying to do it off market, so they're not paying for real estate and all of the oversight that goes along with that.
So these rental companies, my other question with that is, are any of them foreign owned or controlled? Or are a lot of them foreign owned and controlled? How does that play out?
So let me explain how that works. You get an offer, in the first line there's a long underline and there's names written on that. Usually when you get an offer, it says, "Bill and Cindy Smith want to buy your house at 123 Main Street."
Mm-hmm.
When these rental companies come along, it comes with something that says PO 011135 at some other designation, wants to buy your house at 123 Main Street.
Okay.
And here's our proof of money. I have 400 million in the bank. You have no idea who it is. You have no idea where they're located. You have none. All you know is they say is, "I've got cash, we'll close in 2 weeks."
Okay.
So for a while, we were seeing them say America Home for Rent, and then they started. And I don't know if it's because they were taking LLCs out for each individual house or whatever it was, but all of a sudden it became unintelligible.
So the
So
answer to
you,
the question is you
so
don't.
I don't know if it's rich guys from Manhattan or rich guys from the south side of Beijing or not so rich guys in Saudi Arabia. I have no idea.
The difference.
And to my clients, they didn't care. Therefore, I cared, but not that much.
The difference being the people on the south side of Beijing are a little less communist than the people from the south side of New York. Is that? So
It's not an idea that went bad, John. It's
it was a bad
idea.
idea. For those of you listening, that is a quotation from Richard Pipe's Communism: A History. And he crisply says that communism was not an idea that went bad, it was a bad idea.
Yeah.
That's the short story of Marxist Leninism of the 20th century. My big concern, Steve, is for the last, before January of 2025, we had no southern border, and I've heard lots of estimates no one really knows because no one was guarding the border, but as many as 10 million people came during the 4 years when President Biden was president. So if it was 10 million, let's just say that's the number.
How many is that per state, John?
Well, 200,000. And
We have
there's
200. Let's just say it's average 200,000. How many counties do we have in Indiana?
92, call it
92.
100. So let's say it's 2,000 people per county if it's evenly distributed throughout. Which does not, by the way, include all of the illegal immigration that was taking place before all of that. Because illegal immigration has been an issue since, I don't know, I remember talking about it with George W. Bush when he was president. I didn't talk with George W. Bush, but I mean when he was president. 2,000's a lot, especially if you have 10,000 homes that weren't built during those 5 years, right?
2,000 in Johnson County.
Right.
2,000. If you think, let's start with where we're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably a little bit of occupancy, but not much
Mm-hmm.
in the rental community, the apartments and whatnot. But for the most part, apartments are pretty much rented out right now. Houses have somebody living in them, occupants, right now. Where do you put 2,000 people? I just dropped them in parachutes onto Johnson County. 2,000 people. They go somewhere. And it creates stressors for everybody in the whole community. From the real estate view and supply and demand curve, it adds more demand on the rental market. The rental market drives demand for housing. There's no houses because we don't build enough. And I'm telling you what, the builders right now are building houses willy-nilly. I've got several neighborhoods within a mile of me where the Lennar and MI are building houses as fast as they've built a whole neighborhood down the street from me in like a year. The whole neighborhood, boom, here it is, and it's all filled out. People are living there in every house. Bam. I mean, so you drop 2,000 people in, where do they go?
Mm-hmm.
It stresses the schools. It stresses the real estate market.
Healthcare.
It stresses the job market. Yeah.
What we have not said. I've not said this word or phrase. What we've been talking about this last hour or so has been family formation. Really, because if you don't have a house, the likelihood that you're going to start forming a family, having kids, very low, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people from my generation saw their parents get divorced. A lot of people said that's never going to happen to me. So I'm disinclined to want to get married. A lot of people in my generation say, I'd love to have kids, but it's really expensive to have kids. If you're renting, you've got limited space. There's all of these things that are now impacting family formation. So we've talked about affordability. We've talked about where we were. We've talked about where we're at now, where's all this headed? I saw something on the internet the other day that said we're closer to 2050 than we are 2000, which was kind of a horrifying realization.
Mm-hmm.
So let's fast forward a little bit. I know you're not a seer or the son of a seer, but where are we in Greenwood and Johnson County and Central Indiana in 2050? And from a perspective of affordability of housing and from a perspective of family formation.
I tend to look at the optimistic side of it.
Okay.
I tend to think that it's going to be better, that things are getting better, that finances are getting better, and once you get a hold of the sources of the pain, then you can start to heal. But you got to get a hold of the source of the pain, and having 2,000 people just drop into your neighborhood causes pain. Mm-hmm. Whether you like it or not, it's well-intentioned. It's great for the individual, but not for the community. Mm-hmm. Let's put it that way. And you've got to quit importing millions of people into a real estate market, whether rental or purchase, mm-hmm. because that affects the supply and demand. It also affects personal finances because those people are going to get some job to work. Mm-hmm. So you're going to further dilute the finances of the community, right? The chances for you to be upwardly mobile are more difficult. So when you say we're going to stop the border issue, and when I say the border issue, I'm the 2,000 people, wherever they're coming from. Yeah. They could be coming from Burma, they could be coming from India, they could be coming from Venezuela. It doesn't matter. They're just humans, and they're all looking for a way to get ahead. Mm-hmm. You got to manage that differently as a government. You can't just hit and hope. Yeah. When I golf, I put my ball down. I get very well intentioned. I look at where I'm trying to hit the ball to. I think about the club I'm using, and I sit and I overthink it, and I'll move my feet 3 or 4 times, and I'll do a little wiggle. I may even back away before I hit the ball, but I'm very well intentioned that ball is going to go down the fairway, and if I'm lucky, it's going to go about 230 yards and miss that sand trap, because that's the only way I get to the green. Mm-hmm. When you have a government that's saying, I'm not well-intentioned anymore, just go out and hit the ball, and I'm sure it'll hit somewhere where we like, that's not well-intentioned government. Mm-hmm. You got to have well-intentioned government. The other part of it is, we need to start talking as a community. We need to start talking about the good things that are going on. And I know the news loves to talk about bad things. But right now, the financial markets are doing great. Okay. Stock market's up. There's lots of foreign investment coming in with trillions of dollars written around it. If you're a state leader, talk about the good things that are going on. Mm-hmm. Because consumer confidence is just as important in that whole affordability discussion. I'll give you an example. In 1981, I'm sitting on the front step at 4132 Continental Court, a mile away from the University of Indianapolis. Cue the music. Go Hounds. But I'm sitting on the front porch of 4132 Continental Court, and my neighbor is sitting next to us. And I'm talking to him, and we're saying, how will I ever save enough money to have a down payment to buy a house? How will I ever do this? Yeah. And he's looking at me, and we're both shaking our heads. We're like, because at the time, interest rates were 18%, 17, 18%. And we're like, I can't work fast enough. Time doesn't pass quickly enough for me to accrue money to where I can buy a house at any point in the future. The affordability crisis was real for Steve Hoagland sitting on that front step that day. Mm-hmm. We both looked at each other and said, I don't know. But here's what happened. I found a way. I don't know. I don't even know how I found a way. We bought a house on contract. We found somebody that needed to sell and were willing to sell it on contract at 12%. But me and my wife said, you know what? We're bullish on ourselves and we're going to bet on ourselves that we can make this work. And we went and we signed that contract. We bought a house.
Yeah.
And 5 years later, we sold that and bought another house. During those 1980s, after that initial, as close to a depression as I would know, of a financial market, once that, the Carter era financial
Malaise.
The malaise, yeah, it was dismal. It really was. Everything you heard, everything you saw, everything you read was It has an effect on the community. And by the community, I mean Steve sitting on the porch on Continental Court. But all of a sudden, things got better. And the 1980s were fabulous. And not only were they fabulous, you felt fabulous. You felt like this was going to go on forever. It didn't, but you
Morning
felt
in
like
America
it was going to
again.
go on forever. But when that happens, the affordability thing is, I believe in myself, I'm going to do this, and we're going to come out on the other side in great shape. People need to feel that again. They need to be told, trust yourself. You're a smart guy. John, you're a smart guy. You don't have to worry about the affordability thing. It's going to get better. And here's why. We're doing these things. We're intentioned properly. We're addressing the ball, we're grabbing the right club, and we're looking at where we're aiming versus just getting up and slapping at the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
It does. So you've kind of been answering a question, which is, if you were mayor, if you were governor, you would hit consumer confidence and talk about the good things that are happening. I guess from a substantive perspective, from a fundamentals perspective, is there a policy change that you would make if you were mayor, if you were governor? What is it that you would do to justify the consumer confidence? Understand that you've said, financial markets are doing well, stocks are going up, that sort of thing. But are there other things levers that need to be pulled to address affordability and family formation, these sorts of things, to incentivize people to bet on themselves?
That's a really good question, and I don't know that I have the answer for it. But I can tell you what my initial thought is, that it shouldn't be.
Okay.
And that is, here's some money from the government. Go do something.
And the reason why? I
Because
don't disagree. I just...
I know. Because I lived through 2007 and 8.
Mm-hmm.
When the government was saying, here's money, here's free money, here's free money, go do something. Yep, we're going to bet on you, you're going to do good, just take this money and run. There is no free money.
No.
Somebody pays.
Right.
So my first thought on that whole topic of affordability is, well, I go back to where I learned, right? Where I learned was, well, gosh, in 2015, the state of Indiana had a down payment assistance program that was handing money out to help people be able to make a down payment so they could buy a house. Well, that sounds great, except buying a house then meant you were buying a $90,000 house.
Right.
Now it's $400,000.
Right.
It's a different equation. Now instead of $3,000, I need $12,000. Multiply that by how much affordability can you make before all of a sudden you end up hurting yourself,
mm-hmm.
or you slow down the market that's on its way and you slam on the brakes on it. So my initial thought is, be very, very careful about
Free money.
free money.
Easy money.
Yeah, because there is no free money.
Okay.
Somebody pays. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. I guess you've also hinted at the time, it's very hard for you to tell your client, don't sell to America for rent. Is there anything, looking back on the 2008 financial crisis, that you would have done differently? What would you have told Steve Hoagland than sitting where you are now?
Had I known what that was like, had I known what the marketplace was like, I would have not gotten real estate. It was
At all?
pity. At all. It was
Wow.
an absolutely horrible place to work with each and every day dealing with people under immense financial distress. Because nobody else was buying these sold houses.
The market was bleeding at the eyeballs when you decided to get into real estate.
I didn't even realize it. But the people that are around me that had been there 20 years were like, oh, this is hideous. This is the worst market I've ever seen. I was new to it, so I was like, it's just normal.
Uh-huh.
But having lived through it, it was not normal, and it was an awful, awful existence.
Out of curiosity, then, what is it that you would have told Steve Hoagland 15 years ago to do instead of real estate? Go to law school and become a lawyer?
No, that's not very profitable. Um,
No, stick with real estate if you're going to.
that's a good question. That's a real good question. You hear about old people asking young kids, "What are you going to be when you grow up?"
Yeah.
They're looking for ideas.
Yeah.
So even when you're old, you're looking for ideas.
Well, you've always, in my mind, been a historian moonlighting as a realtor, in my mind. So it seems like something history would have been more apropos.
If I'd have figured out how to monetize that, John, I'd have done it in a heartbeat. If somehow somebody would have magically said, "Here's the formula. You're going to be the tour guide. You're going to take people to World War II sites all over France, or you're going to take them to Gettysburg, and you're going to tell the story of Gettysburg without having to be into the, and then this group came over that hill on this day at 1 o'clock. If you can tell the story where people can identify with it, and that would have been my job, to be able to share my passion, which is history, with people that don't have that same passion. But at the end of the day, if they were to look around and go, I may not be as passionate as that guy, but I am more interested in it now than I was before. Because when you go visit somewhere like Gettysburg, and I'll just use that one as the example, I was just there a few months ago. It's just hills, it's just trees, it's just a field where corn used to be, or it's a barn, it's a wall. And if that's all you see when you go there, you're missing the story. What you want to know is the people's story that was there and why they were there. Which kind of dovetails to some of the current events right now that's going on up in Minneapolis. Those men that, both sides, that put on a hat and put on a coat and grabbed a gun and walked 20 miles a day to get to where death was going to happen, that wasn't a casual thing to do. And they were doing it because they felt like it was the right thing to do, both sides.
Mm-hmm.
It scares me when I see stuff going on in Minneapolis and I hear people on the TV say words like states' rights,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm going to call on the Minnesota National Guard to stop the federal government. Because I'm a historian, when I hear those words, my mind immediately ratchets to, and we're going to get those guys off of Fort Sumter, because that federal government doesn't need to be in our harbor. We're going to get them out of South Carolina, even if we have to shoot at them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I hear those kinds of words being used by leaders in Minneapolis, I get very anxious as a historian,
Mm-hmm.
because I see where that goes. I know where that goes, and I know what comes next. And it starts to come around to what makes a man. My great grandfather and his father both joined the 52nd Indiana Infantry in 1862. They lived in Peppertown, Indiana. If you know where Peppertown, Indiana is, it's in the middle of no place. You go towards town to hunt. It's a small, small place in the middle of nowhere. What in the world could possibly make Steve and John stand up and go, we're leaving home, we're going to go fight a war? I never have been able to figure that out. I've never been able to figure that out. They can't have been that strung out over the topic of slavery, because they lived in nowhere land. They had nothing. They were as close to slaves as you can be without being a slave. They had nothing. That they went off to war. And you say, what in the world could cause Steve and John to leave Peppertown and go off and fight a war? And then you see a governor on TV saying, I'm going to call up the National Guard and we're going to attack the Federals. And you say, that's getting close. That's getting close. Now I'm starting to see where that could get sold pretty easily to some people, that we got to stop that. I don't know that that would make you go away, but it starts to lean that direction, and it makes me very nervous what's going on in what's a sanctuary state, which can also be termed as.
So you've made an analogy between Fort Sumter and Minneapolis and what's going on with the violence there, and with the governor's comments about using the National Guard to protect Minnesotans or something like that. Obviously, you can always make a one-off analogy to sort of any historical happening. Are there other factors presently that remind you of the Civil War, generally speaking? Are there other things going on in the milieu of our culture that beyond Minneapolis, that say this is akin to 1861?
Yeah. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
In the 1840s, there were essentially two political parties in the United States: Democrats and the Whigs.
Okay.
William Henry Harrison, John Tyler, I think, maybe. No, Zachary
Tippecanoe
Taylor.
and Tyler too.
Maybe it was Zachary Taylor. I don't know. Well, they were Whigs.
Yeah.
They were presidents of the United States in the 1840s.
Mm-hmm.
By the middle 1850s, the Whig Party was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Where did they go? The Whig Party disintegrated. In history, the concept of history, it happened like that. Less than 10 years, an entire political party with people sitting in the White House, that's how strong they were,
Mm-hmm.
went to not there at all. You say, well, what happened? Well, the Whig Party kind of said, we're not sure who we are anymore, and it split. And it split because the people that were part of it couldn't hold it together.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were being pulled from two different directions. I see it. This is me talking. I have a theory in mind that the Democratic Party is in its death throes, and they don't even know it. That they are going through what the Whig Party went through in the late 1840s, early 50s, where one aspect of their party that had always been there, but was always a minority,
Mm-hmm.
is going to take over the majority. And there's going to be people left in the Democratic Party that don't know who they belong to anymore, because they won't feel like they can belong to the far left,
Yep.
but they don't feel good about being on the far right. But when it comes down to money, and it comes down to a precipitating action, what's going to cause that to finally take place? What's going to what's going to finally break the back of that animal. And I think it's coming. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But when I see what's going on with with um, with what's going on in Minnesota,
Yeah.
and you sit and you say, "Wait a minute, we had we, we had runaway um, immigration,
Mm-hmm.
fundamentally changing the demographics of that area, and then that demographic allegedly has found ways to defraud the United States government." And yet, I've not heard a single Democrat stand up and say, "That's got to stop. That's not right.
Mm-hmm.
We got to purge that from our Democratic Party. We have to purge every bit of that. We cannot be the party of lawlessness and fraud.
Mm-hmm.
We can't go forward in time being the party of lawlessness and fraud. Can't happen." And I haven't heard a single person say that. I've heard him say a lot of other stuff, like states' rights, and I'm going to pull out the National Guard and get out of my city. But I haven't heard anybody stepping up to the issue.
I thought you were going to use the analogy of the dissolution of the Whig Party to talk about the Republican Party, because with the death of Charlie Kirk, it seems like there are real tensions among Republicans. I mean, obviously, Joe Biden's in office for 4 years. Everyone says, "I'm done with this woke crap." And when you're standing at the North Pole, you can go any direction and it's south.
Mm-hmm.
And any direction from leftism is anti-leftist. But Charlie Kirk's assassinated. To me, it seems like it's more apparent. You've got the Candace Owen types. You've got the Ted Cruz types, the Lindsey Graham. I read in John Kennedy's book recently, if you want to stump Lindsey Graham, ask him what country he wouldn't bomb. People that want to be in constant war.
We're talking the fun John Kennedy.
The fun John Kennedy, not the late President Kennedy.
The part-time comedian.
Yeah, exactly.
Who we love.
I love John Kennedy.
Because he's human.
Oh, my goodness. He was on television and he said, "Chuck Schumer's as nervous as a pregnant nun." I just thought that was so funny, whatever the imagery is, it always works, and it's always colorful, always. So, and I think he's like 75 years old or something, one of the young ones in the United States Senate these days.
Yeah.
So in any
problem?
event, yeah, 75.
Trust me, that's a problem.
It is. I read an article that said there's 24 individuals that have seats in Congress, either in the House or in the Senate. 24 that are in their 80s, or 80s or 90s, and over half of them are running for re-election in 2026. Over half. One of whom is Maxine Waters, who said, "My work will never be done here." And it's Charles de Gaulle is famous for having said the cemeteries are full of indispensable men. I think these people get elected to Congress and they think that they're absolutely indispensable, or have convinced themselves they are. But my point with all of that, putting aside the digression, is Donald Trump is not running for president in 2028. And so I think that these issues... Period. Where does the Republican Party go from here? Does it lean into lower taxes for big corporations? Does it lean into foreign wars? Or does it have what's the positive vision of the Republican Party that isn't just anti-left? And we need to engage. I mean, I listened, as of this recording this week, the oral arguments were occurring for a case on, do we allow men to participate in women's sports? Does the Constitution require men to participate in women's sports? And there's been other congressional hearings where doctors are being asked, can men have babies? And the answer seems to be not all that clear. So to me, there needs to be a party that has a pro-civilizational view, a positive view for human flourishing that will lead to things like family formation, to affordable housing, things like that. And not just the tired platitudes of, well, we just need to lower taxes on big corporations and invade the next country on the list to topple. To me, that seems to be the question. And who's the leader that can crisply say, this is the way we need to go. We're leaving leftism behind and we're going to lean in. America needs, let's make America a Christian nation again instead of a backslid nation.
Where we need to go is we need leadership on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
That, and this is a term I used in real estate a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep crazy out of the room. Period.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that should be embossed in metal and hung in every governor's office, in every Senate office, in every House office. Keep crazy out of the room. Because right now we got a lot of crazy
Mm-hmm.
both ways. And we got to keep crazy out of the room, because to have a future where we're encouraged and happy and we feel like we're going in the right direction, you got to keep crazy out of the room. Because right now we're dealing with barking dogs in every direction.
Mm-hmm.
That, let's face it. When I grew up, when my dad grew up, when his dad grew up, when my great grandfather went off to the Civil War, they weren't worried about women's sports.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that want to scream and shout, and I understand that there are people that is very important to them, and it's a legitimate topic.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the topic that the country needs to be overwhelmed with. It's just not.
Mm-hmm.
Wholesome families, absolutely critical. You can't break down that specific structure, otherwise the whole thing falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you lose that structure, and all of a sudden you've let crazy in the room.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of not letting crazy in the room.
So where do you think would you care to name any names on what crazy you're thinking about specifically, Steve?
Well, I could think of one.
Yeah.
And I could think of another who doesn't like millionaires and billionaires, like all those Somali immigrants in Minneapolis. The millionaires and billionaires of Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple.
Yeah. No doubt.
We got to remember that we're America. The line that is always thrown out is, well, we're a country of immigrants.
Yeah.
We're a country of immigrants. And the logic there is sound. But the immigrants, John and Mary Sharkey, who came here from Roscommon, Ireland, in the 1800s, they came here because there were famines in Ireland and people didn't have food to eat, and they came to the United States and made a way, and they are my grandparents.
Yep.
But when they came here, there was no Social Security, there was no welfare, there was no down payment assistance, there was no free phones if you come across the border, there was no free stuff at all. What they said was, come into the country, if you're good enough, you'll make it. If not, you won't.
Yeah.
Free stuff is nothing more than a magnet for bad things to occur. Because everyone likes free, but there is no such thing as free. Somebody pays. We got to stop. We got to stop incenting bad behavior on the part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
because they're going to do whatever makes sense. If you, let's face it, if you can move from Venezuela and be dropped in the middle of Johnson County and buy a house,
Mm-hmm.
you're winning. Somebody lost, but you're winning.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody paid. We got to stop that. We got to say, we appreciate and we respect all the people of the world, but we're not here to be their daddy. And we have so much money in our pocket, we'll just hand out money willy nilly. That's not the role of government. When I was part of a book club in the past, and we read The Federalist, and I don't remember Alexander Hamilton saying, the financial structure of the United States of America should be built on handing money away to people that come to the country.
Yeah.
I don't remember reading that. Maybe it was in there, but I didn't see that.
I think
so
most.
if it's a country of immigrants, it's a different country now than it was at that point in time, and that needs to be called out.
Your father, Steve, do you care about your kids in a special way in which you don't care about other kids in the same way?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you care about your clients in a special way where you don't care about other people's clients as a realtor?
I was pretty clear on that, wasn't I?
Okay, so then explain to me how a government who doesn't care for the people that it's elected to represent and protect is not a good government.
It's disrespectful.
Yeah, it's from a fiduciary perspective, it's failing.
It's
So
exactly.
Our Greenwood government, Johnson County government, state of Indiana government, American government ought to be doing the best to lead to human flourishings of the people that it represents.
100%.
Period.
End of statement.
And it shouldn't be a controversial statement.
That is not controversial.
I think it is, though.
Crazy will come in the room and tell you it's controversial. Crazy needs to get out of the room. What would be great is if there was a normalcy to state and local government and federal government to call it out and go, stop.
Yeah.
Get out.
I live in Indiana because I want to live in Indiana. I have the culture of a Hoosier, and I like being in the culture of a Hoosier. I like visiting other cultures too a lot. I think Europe's great. Go there as much as I can. But I live in Indiana because I'm a Hoosier, and I don't want Indiana to change. I don't want it to change. I don't want its culture to change. I don't think all cultures are the same. I prefer my culture. I don't think that's a bad thing. And when I go, if I went to Italy, I'm not offended that Italians are Italian and have a culture and they like the culture, and I try to respect it when I'm there as a guest.
And when you're there, you respect them and their culture, and you're there as a guest, and you know it. It's their world. You're an outsider, right?
Yeah, and if I think about, let's say where I live, I think there's fewer places for social transactions to happen or social engagements to happen. I think that it's become very atomized. People are in their homes. Churches are not as robust as they were, I would say 20 or 30 years ago. Schools are not as good as they used to be. There's not, if you go to the mall, it's not, they have a bunch of drink shops, but people aren't going there to hang out unless they're 18. There's not a common green area, the commons. There's no place to go where people can hang out. I don't think that's good.
It's not. I was in a little town in northern Spain, Lacatio. It's in Basque Country.
Mm-hmm.
Go there. It's lovely. But I just want to point out one thing. I'm a guest. I've been out to dinner, had a lovely fish dinner. Walking through town, it's got to be 11 o'clock at night. I feel 100% safe and secure.
Yeah.
And the neighbors, the whole neighborhood, is out on the street singing songs and dancing and having fun.
Mm-hmm.
The whole every, everybody that lived in town was out on the street, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, nowhere in America do I see this. These people are living large, and they don't have tons. They're not a rich town, but they are living large. They're happy, and they're just glorious people.
What you're describing is social cohesion.
Yes, it was all ages. The little kids were watching mom and dad dancing around people playing instruments in the street. They're learning. They were doing the dances. They had community dances, where they would all line up and do things. And it was a community cohesion that gets ingrained from the time you're little to the time that you're the old person sitting on the side and watching and going, I remember that was fun when I could do that.
Let me ask you this. Were you concerned about crime when you were there?
Radio, zero.
Really?
It was dark. It was nighttime. It was 11 o'clock at night. We walked a half a mile from where we ate dinner back to our hotel. Never once felt an issue. Never
So
once.
you think there's a relationship there between social cohesion and a lack of crime?
Yes.
I think
Absolutely.
that's the currency of society is
Yes.
the cohesion.
Yes. Right.
Do you so
If anything, they were probably looking at us and going, "Don't know if I trust them."
right?
They're
Do
not
you,
from here,
do you
but they're
do you,
having a drink and dancing with us, so it can't be all bad.
do you feel that way about Greenwood when you're walking around in Meyer parking lot?
No.
I don't either.
There was a day when you could go to the Greenwood Park Mall and walk through there and feel 100% safe, and where you would see people and it was like a 1930s movie at Christmas time. You'd see friends and it was
Yeah.
great to see them. You'd stop and have a cup of coffee, and it was the place to be. Now I walk through there, I don't know anybody, I don't see anybody that I know, and it does not have the same package that it had before. Of course, they're all ordering everything on Amazon, so.
What happened? What happened? Because we've talked about housing and affordability and all of that stuff. Is there a factor that we haven't identified here in the lack of social cohesion here? Greenwood is a wealthier place than the place in Bass Country you were talking about, right?
It, that's country great. You should go there.
Yeah, but what accounts for this? Why is it? Why are all there's these blue these emergency police things in Meyer and in the mall and everything else? Why does everything feel not safe? Why was there 4 people shot a mile south of where I live the other day?
That's all.
What's going on?
I wish I had the answer, but it's not comfortable, and
No.
I don't like it. It was one thing for me to sit and go, oh, that's happening in California, or that's happening in Minneapolis, or that's happening somewhere else. But when it starts happening around where I live, it's probably got enough traction that we got a different issue going on.
I think one issue is the crime that is so pervasive in Marion County bleeds into our county and other counties that are around Marion County. And I've talked with state legislators who have asked, John, would it be legal for us to build a wall on county line to keep everybody out?
I don't think it's legal to do that, but
I'll send them your way to give the advice.
yeah,
But my understanding of Marion County law enforcement, it's sort of catch and release based on the prosecutor there. There's not real consequences for crime and repeat offenders. And
So one of the people that worked with me in real estate, she worked with me and my wife for 12 years, I think. Her husband is a policeman, is now a detective, but he would sometimes come into the office and we would sit and chat. And one of the frustrating things that he had as a policeman was he could execute the laws as a policeman and say, you're breaking the law, and arrest people and send them downtown for prosecution. But what he couldn't do was keep them in jail.
Yeah.
And it was frustrating to him, off the charts, frustrating to him, that he would catch a bad guy doing really bad things, and they would spend the night in jail, and they're back on the street the next day doing really bad things. Nobody wants to
Why were they back on the street?
because the prosecutor said, I don't want to charge it.
Why didn't he want to charge it? Do you have any idea?
Well, I have my instincts.
What's your instinct?
My instinct is that there is a party that believes that you don't want to have people in jail for any reason, and then you have a party like the one that's in charge in Johnson County where we have an express lane to jail, right?
Yeah.
And in Indianapolis, the party that's in control, for whatever reason, has decided that that is not important to them. And it could be just numbers. You know, I can't build enough jails and hold enough people to keep all the criminals in. But then you got to start asking the question: what happened to our society that there's that many people breaking the law? The favorite
which goes to my earlier refrain, which is family formations.
Absolutely, yeah, and the church. And I mean, it used to be if you were going to church and you got arrested, people would be like, oh, you know, what are you doing? You're a horrible human being. And I'm sitting, I watch people on the TV asking to be arrested up in Minneapolis on the TV, and they're going to wear it like a red badge of courage. Like, I got arrested. I'm just got a promotion in our buddy club, right? That's the wrong buddy club. You got to keep that crazy out of the room. And as long as the buddy club of crazy is in control, you're going to have people being released. I mean, you're going to let them come into the country, you're going to let them break laws, and then you're going to let them back out on the street, one after the other, and you have to start saying that's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, there's no logic there at all, and it's intuitive and common sense. But at the core of it, you got to say, why do they feel like it's okay? Why at the core of it, it's an individual, and they're going to do things because they've talked themselves into it, like it's okay. It's easy to sit and say, "Oh, it must be drug warfare." You know, it's our own cartels out at 42nd and Midhoffer that are fighting with each other. They're still people. They're still somebody's son and daughter.
Yeah.
And there's somebody that's looking at it and saying, "Yeah, that's my son out there. He's a tough guy, and you know he's part of that cartel." Or that's my son out there, and I'm horrified because he's living a bad life. It's not a good life. And I really wanted him to have a good life. When I was holding him as a baby, I never thought, "Oh, he's going to be dodging bullets as part of your life." Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that for their kids. If you do, there's a whole different issue there.
Well, a lot of people are running around in politics calling themselves conservatives, and my question of that is, what is it that you're trying to conserve exactly? You know, and are you in fact succeeding in conserving that which you say you're trying to conserve? And when you look around at your community and say, there's more crime in my community now than there was 20 years ago. Things are not as affordable as they were 20 years ago. There's not as many opportunities as there were, and there's not the same social cohesion. Then people need to be asking hard questions about whether people are conserving anything particular at all.
I don't disagree.
And, you know, if you're interested, this can be the forum where today you announce your candidacy for fill in the blank, Steve.
For I'm going back into real estate.
Yeah.
That's it. I'd like to announce today that I'm back into the buying and selling of real estate.
Mhm.
Nobody wants that.
Well, but
But
I
John,
yeah.
I'm 70 years old. At 70 years old, you're not smart enough, you're not good enough. You should get out of real estate and let some of the young people get into it. Oh, wait. Am I talking about real estate or am I talking about politics?
At 70 years old, you'd be one of the young guns in the United
I'd
States.
be a young one, wouldn't I?
Yeah.
I'd be a newbie.
Yeah.
Look at the rookie. He's only
You'd bring
70
the
years old.
Yeah,
Wait till
yeah,
he's
you'd bring the
92.
average age down significantly with Chuck Grassley.
Oh, I just feel so sorry for those folks. Get out. You know what? I would tell everybody that's over 80 years old running for re-election that they need to go to Lacadio and spend an evening and say, would I rather be here or back there arguing about fill in the blank?
Yeah,
I'm arguing about stupid stuff.
yeah.
There's a time and place for that. When you're 80 years old, it's time to go enjoy life. Live a little bit. And I'll be glad to show you where those places are. And if you're a history buff, I will be glad to take you to Normandy or to Holland or
See the
Bastogne.
hoaglandgroup.com for more information.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I saw a thing on the internet that said, it was a spoof, but it said, remembering the last 400 years of Nancy Pelosi's congressional career. And it had this soundtrack.
The highlights.
Yeah, it was the highlight reel of all of her craziest stuff. It was so funny.
Oh, my gosh.
She's finally getting out now, though, I think. I wonder if she
Hopefully.
stays in San Francisco, though.
Would you?
No.
You know, when I was a kid, John, they had songs about California girls and the beaches and the waves and surfing and California, Hollywood, and swimming pools and movie stars.
Steve McQueen.
As a kid growing up on the mean streets of the Meadows in downtown Indianapolis, I was like, "Wow, California must be all of that." That is just like, wow. That's got to be the coolest place on earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the opposite now. And
Have you been there recently?
Several years ago. I'm not excited about going back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Went to the Northern California area. Enjoyed going up there, going to some wine country kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But California as a whole, I don't necessarily want to go back. And I'm 70 years old. When I was 10, California dreaming was the best. And now I look at it and I think, you've destroyed it.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? And you did it an inch at a time. An inch at a time. Until now it's nothing like it was. You still have the beach, but that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad. I mean, it's just sad.
Well, I'll never forget going to California once, and my wife made a comment about there were these signs. We were on a pier near the ocean, and there were signs every 5 feet that said, wear a mask. They were in metal, and they were put on there. And her response was, how much money was spent on doing this particular project outside in the open air? And I thought, yep, that's right. That's why we're married. She's spot
Yep.
on as usual. They're
Yep.
worried about spreading germs and outside, on hiking trails and not spreading COVID, and you've got to wear a gas mask on your hike or whatever. Silliness. Meanwhile, the governor who made the rules out at the French Laundry, having a nice dinner, not observing any rules.
I call him a hood ornament, John. You know why?
Why is that?
Because a hood ornament on a car, it's out front and it looks good and it serves no useful purpose.
Mm-hmm.
The governor of California is a hood ornament.
Is he going to run for president, do you think, in 2020? Who's going to run?
I can't imagine that guy has, unless there's a king of the world position that he can run for, I can't imagine him not. And let's stop just for a second. Let's just go through. You just talked about the highlights for Nancy Pelosi over the last 400 years.
Yeah.
Let's just talk, just just because you pay attention. You
Yeah.
pay attention a lot. Give me the top two things that we can say that Gavin Newsom's done for either California or the country. Just give me two. Just give me two things that you would say. There's why this guy is who he is.
Good things.
Uh, two good things. Two things that anybody would go, yep. Struggling?
Michael Knowles once wrote a book that said the successes of leftism, and it was a 400-page book with nothing in it. And you could change the title to the high achievements of Governor Gavin Newsom, and it would be the same content.
This man wants to run for president, and you, who are a scholar, learned, well-read, keep up to date with things, struggle to say, here are two things about Gavin Newsom.
I think of a slew of other things.
I feel good about.
I think there's a slew of other things like the LA fires. I think that's a big problem that lean the other direction. But I think you have. This is just me speculating. I think probably Newsom runs. I think AOC runs, or if she doesn't run for president, she's going to be speaker, try to be speaker, or try to be a senator and take Chuck Schumer's job. But I think that she runs for president probably. Maybe Mondami runs. Who else? Is there anybody else on that list I'm missing?
What was that phrase Pipes had about communism?
It wasn't an idea that went bad. It was a bad idea.
So therefore, it would be a bad idea for Mondami to run.
It's a terrible idea.
It's a terrible idea.
He suggested that the city government ought to be in charge of grocery stores. And my question is, how well is New York picking up the trash on the streets in New York City, which is something the city's in charge of? If the answer is not that well, then maybe we ought to do the job that you have well before you
start taking... signed up for before you get to this.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. If everything that you want to do says I need money from a specific segment of society, you're probably an ideologue in that.
If you let's change the example to if you had an administrative assistant at the Hoagland Group who wasn't that good at organizing documents for closing, would you then give this person greater responsibility to handle more complicated things?
Correct. No, I would not. No. And therein, you just hit the nail on the head of why I say the Democratic Party is coming to a time when they're going to have to decide who they are.
Yeah.
Because if AOC runs for president, and Mondami, wasn't he born in Uganda? So he can't run.
Born where?
Wasn't he born overseas?
I think so, but I don't know. I don't know his biography that well.
I think he was born outside the country, so he doesn't fulfill that. They can change that rule, but I don't think
it's more of a guideline.
It's more of a guideline than a rule. We're not going to say anything about that other president. So yeah, they're going to have some issues.
Yeah.
The only reasonable talking Democrat that I've heard any time in the last 3 months is John Fetterman. He's got normalcy attached to him. Now he's got different viewpoints on things, but he's not crazy.
Yeah.
So much of what we see starts.
Isn't he also a stroke victim?
He is. Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty. I mean,
if he was just 85 years old, he'd be a perfect candidate.
He could be a chairman of a committee.
He could. Yeah. Oh my.
Well, who do you think? We talked about who's going to run on the Democrat side. Who's running on the Republican side?
You know, every time I listen to J.D. Vance speak, I think there's John Westerkamp just in a different role.
Oh, please.
Yeah, I know. You even kind of look like with the beard going on there, but
yeah,
he's really, really crisp, and he's got the organization of his mind in the right place. with focus on Christianity, family,
Yeah.
and the good of the country, not the good of my party. Um,
He's a
and
sharp guy, and
he really should.
I appreciate that for the last 30 or 40 years, other than Trump, Republicans have always just accepted the form of the question that was presented to them by the media. And JD Vance doesn't do that. You know, Mitt Romney would always, he would always be the slick thing, McCain, all of them. And he just, frankly, Margaret, I don't give a damn, sort of, I really don't care. And neither do
And
the
that's a
people
hard
that
thing for
represent me.
somebody to do.
Yeah.
It really is. When somebody asks you a question, it's a really hard thing not to just answer the question.
Hmm.
Even though you might be sitting going, the whole purpose of your question was to take us down a rabbit hole of your intent
Hmm.
that really it's to do you still beat your wife?
Do I
I
still,
mean, if you're
yeah,
good, you still
yeah,
beat your wife. I
yeah,
mean, you yes or no. Either
right.
way is the wrong answer.
Yeah.
And they get those kinds of questions thrown at him, and he's real quick just to say, I I'm just not going to go with your premise of your question.
Yeah.
That's not in anybody's best interest, and I appreciate that. Uh, with what I said about JD, I think he's been great. I think Marco has um, demonstrated a a capability that's extremely strong.
He's
That
really shined
I
as
don't really
Secretary of
feel
State.
like he had that 8 years ago.
Hmm.
But I feel like he is a strong individual that's well thought out, and he's not taking it from anybody else either. I like that about him. Um, I can't imagine doing his job. People should send thank you notes to the Secretary of State because his work life is every minute of his life. I mean, every day he's got to wake up, grab his phone, and say, "What now? Where's it at now?
You know,
What's the latest problem I've got to deal with right now?" That's a that's a that's an awful burden for any human to have to take.
you and I are
Think
both
about
fans.
it. You got how many countries are there? A couple hundred.
Yeah.
Any one of them is a flashpoint on any given moment.
Yeah.
And tag your it. What's the answer?
Yeah.
What's the right answer? What's the answer that doesn't make somebody next door mad? I mean, that State Department job is hard.
You and I are both fans of Henry Kissinger, and Henry Kissinger was both Secretary of State and National Security Advisor at the same time. Marco's Secretary of State and also the acting National Security Advisor right now. Did you know that?
I did not realize that.
Yeah. So he's in charge of perhaps one of the most important departments of government, and also has to run an
So if
office in the
Marco
White
spoke
House.
with a different accent, he could be our next Kissinger.
Different accent. That's right. Well, and think about what are the top. I make a list every day, multiple lists every day, and on my list goes different things. Can you imagine the list of Marco Rubio? Ukraine, Russia. I guess that's still going on. Greenland, Venezuela, Israel. I go.
Killing Christians in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Oh wait, Iran's falling apart. The
Okay.
Chinese are getting a little anxious. Taiwan's getting nervous. Yeah, it just
That's
goes
a
on.
busy.
Oh,
That's tough.
and Denmark is sending troops to Greenland because they're afraid the Operation Overlord's going to turn around and make one of their beaches.
And then you have that Russian former advisor to Putin saying that if the Russians lose the Ukraine conflict, then they're going to use nuclear weapons against the UK and Germany. Did you see that?
I did not see that.
Yeah.
That's that's a perfect example of we got to keep that crazy out of the room.
Yeah.
You don't need people like that. The world doesn't need anybody like that.
Yeah.
I can't. Can you imagine if there was pick a leader in any of them? If Macron said, you know what, we're thinking about nuke in Moscow. And by the way, we're going to do Beijing too while we're at it because, they were close by. People would go, that's not cool, man. That's not cool. And we don't need that kind of conversation in the room. Make it go away. There used to be a time when people would say, that's not cool, get out. And you were out. Now, in the world of social media, you were talking about social cohesion a while ago.
Yeah.
I meant to comment on that. We live in a world where there's no socialization. We don't have anything like the people of Acadia at 11 o'clock on Friday night. But we all have social media that keeps us connected to our friends and to issues and topics that we're all interested in. And it's ubiquitous. It's in our life every minute of every day. It's wherever our phone is, which is usually close by. And yet we have no social cohesion. What happened?
A friend of mine's observed that there's no surreptitious meeting of people anymore. If you want to go hang out with somebody, you likely have to schedule it in sometime in advance, pick where you're going to go and drive 10, 20, 30 minutes to go do the thing.
Yep.
Which means it's not going to happen because it's a form of tax. You can't... There's a lot of things that have to line up to make all that work. Well, who's going to watch the kids? What do I got to get out of there by this time to do this other thing? Blah, blah, blah.
Yep. I come from the era where the phone rang and you didn't even know who it was before you answered it.
Yeah.
You
That's an act of faith that nobody has
it.
anymore. Nobody has that kind of faith anymore.
It could have been anybody on the other end.
What? And you probably answered the door without looking who it was as well, right?
Exactly. So somebody rang the doorbell. Let's get the bunt cake out and have them in.
Right.
Now you're like, who in the world? They didn't text before they came over. They just showed up at the front door. What kind of people are these?
Sort of sociopaths on my...
You should sit down the street and send us a text and say, is it okay if I drive in your driveway?
Right.
Oh, my.
Well, okay, Steve.
My favorite times is when I'm sitting on the couch and somebody just stops by and says, hey, we were in the neighborhood and we just wanted to stop and say hi. I'm like, kill the fattened calf, put a ring on the finger, and get him a robe. This is a day right here. We're having fun now. Just doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
Of course, I have to stop my Netflix or my Apple or Prime and say, oh, I can get back to that. I'll watch the rest of that tomorrow.
You're 7 episodes deep in a new series that you found on Netflix.
Yeah.
If you asked someone, would you watch a 10-hour movie with me? They would say no. But would you watch 10 one-hour episodes of a series? That could happen.
I know. I was flipping channels. They were looking at the different things on the guide today. Game of Thrones was on there. And Game of Thrones had like 7 seasons of, 10 to 15 episodes each. When you watch the first one, at no point did they say, and you're going to watch this for a calendar month of your life.
Yeah.
You're going to give a month of your life to Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
You set up for that? Are you ready? And yet by the end, you're like, oh, the finale's tonight, You get excited about it.
Mm-hmm. And then you think, there'll be a resolution there, and then they tee it up for the next season.
Yeah. Now we got the next season, and it's going to be 6 months from now. So I got to go back and watch that 5th season again. I don't want to start the 6th season until I remember what happened in the 5th season. Yeah. Fun, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Steve, it's been a delight to have you on the show. I feel like I know a lot more about what's going on in terms of affordability, but I also appreciated talking about the Civil War, Minneapolis, foreign policy, some of these other digressions. Thank you so much for being generous with your time and joining me today.
John, it's been my pleasure.
All right.
Do good.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for listening.